Hello, my name is Jane Churchill. I'm an artist and I'm really excited to be working with Portsmouth Museums on a lovely art project that everyone can take part in. We're looking at the Natural History Collection and I'm going to show you lots of fun ways to create moths and butterflies. On the website there is a template like this, which means that first of all, before you start, cut out lots of moths and butterflies. You can lie this over 2 or 3 sheets, and when you're cutting one out, you'll be able to cut 2 or 3 at the same time. So make sure you've got lots of moths and butterflies to begin with. You might want to ask an adult to help you. You might like to do it as a whole family. It's a really nice project to work on all together. So starting with, protect your table with some sort of newspaper or a cover, like this is just a bin liner. Protect your clothes and roll up your sleeves. On the website there is also a list of materials on the activities page, so that you might want to use some of these things. So I'm going to use all of them and I'm going to show you what to do, and you can choose which ones you might like. So I'm imagining you've cut out lots of moths and butterflies. These are some I've cut out in advance. I'm going to start off using coffee, which is something you'll probably have in the house, just freeze-dried coffee. And I have got some dry coffee here, and I've got some coffee made up, like a teaspoonful of the coffee powder in water here. And what we're going to do is we are going to make this really nice and wet, cover it as if we were doing like a little painting. It makes a very lovely nice sort of coffee sort of stain. And then we're going to do the magical bit, which is we're going to use some salt. I've got some salt here, just normal kitchen salt. And if you do a bit of sprinkling of salt, you can see how it wants to suck up the colour. And so you get some nice lovely speckled designs. Then I'm going to use the freeze-dried coffee. And you want to make sure that you only powder it. Don't put big lumps on if you can help it. I'm just doing a little gentle powdering, really crushing it between my fingers, so that you can see here we're going to get this lovely sort of speckledy sort of effect, which is very like moths are in the wild. And you'll be able to see pictures on the internet, or you can see them in the museum because they're lovely. So we're going to do that. It's very quick. All you want to do now is just put it to one side. I'm going to add just a little bit more colour in the centre, because moths and butterflies have often got darker bodies. So we're going to just put that to one side, okay, over here to dry. So I'm going to leave that one over to dry. When it's dry, what happens is it tends to look like something like this. You get this lovely sort of sprinkly pattern effect. So we're going to take another moth or a butterfly here. Okay, another one of your shapes. This one's a bit smaller. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just doing the wet coffee. I'm putting my little, I'm just painting it all over. I'm making it quite wet. You want to have quite a lot of water on there, which is why it's good to protect your table. And this time, I'm just going to do the sprinkling of the coffee into that lovely water there, like that. There we are. So you might just do one like that. Now the other thing that we can do is we can also add in a darker body by using watercolour paints. These are just ordinary children's watercolours, and you want a nice sort of, I've got some water there, you want a nice sort of wet wash. Any paint that you can make really watery, and then all you're going to do is just put a little bit of paint at the centre of the body where the moth or the butterfly has got his body, because they often are like that. And maybe you want to just do a little edge with paint at the edges there. And again, we're just going to move it to one side and leave it to dry. And these might take, a good hour or so to dry. But there we are. So it's all going to bleed and blend around. But that's the exciting thing. It will do all sorts of different things than you expect. And it turns out really very excitingly. So this one, when it's dry, you can see it's got a dark body. And what we do is we scrape off, or you just brush off the salt and the coffee with your fingers, and you'll see underneath you get this sort of texture appearing where the paper, it's just that lovely sort of speckledy. You have to do it very carefully so you don't pull off his antennae. There we are, like that. So we might want to do one that's colourful. So you might want to actually take a little moth or a butterfly here, and we're using just clean water, and I'm just going to, this one is a sort of a nice purpley colour. I'm going to go with the purpley colour kind of butterfly. Purple is a deeper blue, bluey kind of blues here. Let's do a bluish kind of butterfly. Add a bit of, there we go, nice purple. So you can just add in your colour. Again, you want to make him quite nice and wet. The watercolour wash should be really nice, wet kind of colour, so that we can sprinkle in our coffee, our magical coffee. And now try not to use wet fingers. Always keep your fingers nice and dry. There we are. So we're going to put that in, see what happens with the powder. Like that. And then I'm going to use the salt as well. A bit of salt sprinkled in there. But also, I'm going to use the really dark sort of black and brown colour again right into the centre here. Because that's really lovely. That's a lovely thing to do. I'm not going to put much on, but I am going to just edge slightly those wings so it's a bit more like a real one. And again, I'm going to move that to one side. The next one we're going to do, when this one is dry, you can see, look, with the colour underneath, how you get the lovely sort of moth texture, but also there's more colour in there. So that's what that one will probably look like, more like by the end of it. You can also work on ones where you start with a colour, and this has now gone dry. So I painted it pink and then I've let it dry, and now it's ready to go again. So I'm going to use a different colour watercolour over the top. So I've got pink there, and this time I'm going to use, I think I'm going to go with the blue again. I'm going to do some of it over the top, which again will go a bit sort of purpley. And some of it I'm just going to do water or coffee. I might add the coffee in over the top, that lovely coffee stain. In fact, that's the best, that's most exciting, isn't it? I like the coffee. Coffee and blue paint. A bit of a mixture over the top of that pink. It will just give a slightly different effect because you've got one layer of paint already underneath, just to give it a sort of a base colour. And again, let's do our sprinkling. Like that. And again, some coffee and some salt. And we're going to darken down the body just a little bit. And let it do its thing. I might also be tempted sometimes to just sprinkle in a little bit of paint just into the wings, just to add a little bit extra colour. And we'll let that one dry as well. I'm going to run out of space here. There we go. So one of the other things you can do, which I don't know if you've got hold of any, you might have to go and buy some ink, but this is called Parker's Quink ink, and this is a really lovely thing to use with the coffee and the salt. So if I just get one more here we go. There we are. So this time we want the coffee as our base colour. So nice wash of the coffee. You can see how quick they are and how very quickly you can build up a whole sort of amazing array of different sorts of moths and butterflies. And of course you can colour them in with coloured pencils, you can colour them in with felt tip pens, but these are just a few different things you might not already have done. So I've got my nicely, wonderfully covered with coffee sort of butterfly, and I'm going to use ink. And I'm just putting ink here into the centre of this butterfly. Well, actually this one looks like it's much more of a moth shape, this one I think. And I'm definitely going to outline my wings here, just along the edges, very roughly. I'm not doing anything that's too difficult. I'm just, whilst it's nice and wet. So make sure with this you have protected your table because the ink doesn't come out very well. Whilst that's like that, we're going to try out our coffee. I'm really crushing it between my fingers. Try not to just throw it on in the lumps. Really do crush it as you go. There we are, and then a bit of salt. And we'll see, as you can see, as soon as you put the salt on, can you see how the ink wants to separate and follow the pattern of the salt? So we should get some really interesting effects with this. So again, I'm going to move that to one side. Once the table is starting to get a little bit messy, we just need to find a little sheet of spare paper. Just have one of these just so that you can soak up some of the stuff and not spoil the back of your butterfly. We just get ink here at the bottom of our moth. And using the straw, there we are. That's a really lovely little technique to use to make this like sort of fireworks going off. So that's quite a fun one to do. With the ink, the coffee, the other thing that would be really fun to do is if you want to get hold of this stuff, it's called art masking fluid, and it is it's like a little rubber. It's sort of got rubber, and I've got a little pot of it here. When you use this, just be aware that your brush, you need to use a really old brush that you don't like anymore, because it's probably going to ruin the brush. So you can use a toothbrush or an old toothbrush, or you could use just a matchstick or a stick like this to use this. So I'm just on here, I'm just going to do a bit of flicking. Okay, so I'm going to flick. This has got a little bit of give in it. This is a very old paintbrush, so I don't mind if I ruin it. But you can do the same thing with, if you dip in an old toothbrush that you've saved, you can get a nice sort of speckling effect. I'm just flicking it onto the pattern there. And the other thing you can do is you can draw using a stick. So here we are. I'm just going to use this